KLOS Helpful Honda Rock Room. Thanks to our dear friends and partners, the SoCal Honda dealers, for making the Rock Room possible. Thank you, SoCal Helpful Honda dealers. Also, thank you to our partners, DB Technologies, Sawtooth Music and Instruments, lighting by Visual Elements, and audio production by Trans Am Entertainment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the KLOS Helpful Honda Rock Room. My name is Emo, and I want you to make as much noise as you possibly can for Marci Weiser and Matt Pinfield.
All right, you guys, how you doing tonight? Oh my gosh, so good to see you all here. Listen, I know it's been a day, so I'm so glad you guys were flexible and you were able to join us tonight, because this is going to be killer. I am Marci Weiser. Welcome to the KLOS Helpful Honda Rock Room.
Yes, and I'm Matt Pinfield, and we are so excited to have you here. First of all, thank you so much for being patient and waiting for those of you who had to change your schedule. You know, these storms have made things pretty crazy, so the equipment got stuck when it was closed the 15, the highway on the way here. But we really appreciate you devoted KLOS fans. Thanks so much for being here to see such an incredible show tonight with one of the greatest rock bands in America.
You know what they call that, Matt? They call that rock and roll.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what we're here for. Huge band, small room. You are going to be so happy, and we're so happy to see you. So thanks for coming to rock with us.
Yeah, so please help me welcome right now to our KLOS Helpful Honda Rock Room interview stage, the one and only, no, actually it would be two. Chris and Rich Robinson of the Black Crowes. So great to see you guys.
What's up?
How's it going?
We are so happy you guys made it. Thanks so much for coming and doing it.
Yeah,
we're just very laissez-faire about logistical things.
that's the way to be. You got to roll with it, right?
Go with the flow, right?
After 30, let's don't say how many years, but after a certain amount of time, it would be bizarre to get upset over things like that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys could make it. Last time I saw you guys, it was 2019, Troubadour. We sat down for a little chat. Yeah.
We did.
That was cool. So I'm glad to see you back at it. I love this. You guys have such a rich history, rich backstory. You guys formed in 1984. Thinking back to that day, did you ever think 40 years
85.
fast forward?
It's 1985.
But did you ever think that...
But who cares? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're here. You're here. You'd still be cranking out new tunes, and you would still be totally relevant today.
Yes. No. Not at all. At a certain point, well, no, to be honest, I don't think we ever, maybe to our default, I think we, for better or for worse, have always just kind of lived in the moment. And maybe if we had thought about those things, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't think
just kind of rolling with it, taking it as it comes.
I mean, we're not, we didn't really have the only plan we had was to just try to write, songs that we thought were good and express ourselves, and
mission accomplished.
It worked out really well, didn't it?
And that's still what's going on. You know what I mean? Like anything in life, good times, bad times, bizarre times. If music is your thing, music is your thing, and we're exactly the same way. I meet people, all the time, and I'm always, people always want to share a little story about like a song that we've written and I'm like, of course, because I do the same thing, whether it's, melancholy or joy or whatever, you have music in your life for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. You guys have always been big music fans. Rich, when did you realize that music was going to be your path? When did you decide to pick up a guitar? And then I'd love to hear Chris answer as well. But first, tell me about when you really got the interest in playing.
Early on, Dad had a guitar in the house, and I just remember picking it up and,
picking out songs on TV or whatever. You know what I mean? Just when I was like 12. And then he got sick of me messing with his nice guitar, and he Oh,
Did he take it away?
yeah. So he was
Speaking
like,
of
maybe-
backstory, Rich just told you guys that Dad wasn't around. And
yeah.
he didn't know that you had his guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was early on, 12, 13, 14 years old.
So, and Rich, at that age, who was it who really grabbed your ear? Who inspired you guys as kids?
The first song I learned how to play was a Dylan song, and it was Oxford Town.
Wow.
And I just remember it really moved me, and that record moved me. But there was a long list of, earliest memories I had was like listening to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Deja Vu, when we were kids, like 3 years old. I remember hearing it on the console stereo that was in our house. But as you get older, you go through your own sort of mission to find your own thing. And Chris was always bringing music into the house, and then I would take from his room when he was at school, I would steal his records and listen to them.
He would always do things like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it is funny when you say, like, what's the first song? Because, at that time in the 80s, early and mid 80s, at least in Atlanta, anyone that we would have access to that was in a band, they were in like cover bands.
Yeah.
And we just, it's like, it's like, dude, play Eruption. It's like, what? We're not doing that. I mean, we could, but the funny thing of that is for whatever reason, our entrance into the world was, okay, maybe we can write songs, what I mean? And that kind of imagination and creativity and that kind of inspiration was far more important than sitting around and, like ripping on like other people's stuff, because that was just the scene that influenced us. And we weren't really, we weren't the kind of kids that were really interested in like top 40 things or, most of the kind of popular sort of. So everything was more like
your punk roots, really.
Yeah,
right? Like a lot
like-
of punk rock, and you listen to REM, and then let's talk about that, because you formed Mr. Crow's Garden. What was that like? There was a Georgia influence there as well, from where you grew up.
Well, I mean, REM, we were, the early 80s hardcore punk scene was really important to us because, number one, it was so different and it was so underground. And, I mean, besides, punks being on Quincy and stuff, I mean, the worst thing you could be called
And
was
Chips.
a Quincy punk. And Chips, they have that. I think the Dickies play on Chips or whatever.
That's great.
But things like USA Network used to have a programming called Night Flight, and they had a show called New Wave Theater with this guy Peter Ivers, and that's where like, oh wow, we saw, Black Flag or the Circle Jerks and Fear and like all the LA bands and more kind of West Coast bands, and it was like, wow, this is cool, and it was something, the DIY part of it. Oh yeah, it's something we could get into really quickly. But then, because of the records we liked and all the other kind of music, then something we see REM and, they're different. They have Rickenbacker guitars, and the Byrds had Rickenbacker guitars, and we loved the Byrds in the Buffalo Springfield, and we liked this, you know what I mean? So it was like, we could start to, it just showed us that we could incorporate so many more of our influences, Yeah.
What was your fashion like? You were listening to these punk bands and REM and influenced by these bands.
The punk thing was, we had to hide our punk clothes. Like, if Dad saw you like leave the house like looking weird, he would be upset. So I mean, we weren't like fully charged Mohawk people or anything, and one of our favorite bands of all time, and still one of our favorite bands, is X, and great Los Angeles rock band. And it was super easy to get some spray paint and just put an X on a white T-shirt and like go to the club, So
You said years ago to me, it's funny, we were doing an interview, and I remember you saying to me, man, we were growing up, there was no merch. We had to make it. You had to make your own T-shirts. I remember I would do that with the rock bands.
You could get Bauhaus shirts and MDC shirts, like that was like at the record store.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mr. Crow's Garden, we were, and it also like, you're in Atlanta, and like we kind of had like our kind of Beatlesy haircuts, and we would take our black jeans or corduroys and we would pin them to make them thin. And, you know, we were desperately looking for like Chelsea boots, like Beetle boots. Could never find them. And like Peter Buck from REM always had like big shirts and vests, and he always looked cool. So, I mean, that was kind of our fashion.
What's your thing?
Yeah. Not for a little while.
Yeah, right. We all transition. So 80s, you guys were bouncing around for a bit. You were paying your dues, as all bands and artists do. But it was Shake Your Moneymaker. That's the one, the debut album that made you a household name.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was it.
I mean, I don't know. We're a name in some households.
Yeah.
I don't know households. I mean, it was funny because you were talking about this. Like, being in Atlanta was the real gift because so much of our naivete and romance, you know, we romanticized and mythologized the idea of, oh, you can be we didn't know about music business things or, you know, career. That, you know, get back to where we started. What was a career? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that wasn't something that we could have even begun to think about.
Yeah. It's amazing that you did that record with George Drakoulias, who signed you guys and worked with you guys at American, which is so cool.
Going to Orange Julius with George Drakoulias?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Beastie Boys.
Yeah, exactly. I love that Beasties put that in the lyric, which is so cool, right? You know, so it's amazing how your second single from that album is, you guys really put that song on the map. It's an incredible song. It was so great when you guys did that track, Hard to Handle. Otis Redding, having that Georgia connection, you know, and also, you know, because other than you guys, only the Grateful Dead were doing it live, like pretty much after Otis had put it in, you know, it was something that was released after he passed away. But I mean, you guys just made that your own, and it became this incredible anthem. Talk to me about discovering that song and that relationship with George.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because when you talk about music in general, like George saw us play in New York at a club, and he came backstage just randomly. He was looking for a rock band to sign in an age where it was either metal or this or, you know, hair metal bands and that kind of stuff. But he wanted something that in his mind, he felt was like a rock and roll band.
Some rootsy stuff that had
something that would have that kind of influence. And someone had mentioned us. He came to Atlanta. He was an A&R guy looking for bands. We weren't playing that week. But then he saw we were on a bill with like 5 bands.
He said he went into a yogurt shop and asked the guy, was like something like that.
That's amazing.
Who's a rock and roll?
Well, the guy he didn't just walk into a yogurt shop. The guy was like a rock and roll dude working in there. Yeah.
And he was asking the guy like what bands
toppings
are
he could get.
Yeah. It was like a random
Yogurtland or Yogurtville.
Yeah, it's a Yogurtville.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he and then someone said you should check out Mr. Crow's Garden.
So he came and the show, I don't even remember. I mean, we were just so out of control being in New York and stuff. But we played No More, No More by Aerosmith in our set.
Oh, yeah.
And we played Down in the Street by the Stooges. And he said that's where those 2 songs and then with what we were doing. And that kind of was like started our dialogue and started our relationship with him.
So speaking of cover songs, which artist, alive or dead, would you want covering your songs?
That's amazing. I don't know. How could we make the most money, I think?
All right, Gene.
Yes. Taylor Swift. Don't we all want to hear Taylor Swift sing nonfiction? I mean...
Are you a Swiftie?
I'm very quick on my feet, but I don't know about being a Swiftie. No, you know what? I don't know. That's a good. No one's ever asked me that question, but one time, Prince.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we heard one time that Prince. This was before everyone was documenting every second of everything. Prince played in Atlanta and played "Jealous Again" in his set. Yeah.
How amazing is that when you hear that?
And I was like, yeah, because I mean. trust me, when it always comes back to our dad. My dad came in my room one time, and on the Controversy album, again, back then it wasn't like, there were no Prince things to have. So the poster inside the record is like Prince in his like string bikini, like, it was the only picture they had. I put it on my wall.
Can you do that one more time?
Yeah, it's great.
And my dad was like, what is that? I'm like,
Yeah.
Dad, that's the man, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Controversy was on like Don Kirshner's rock concert. And you saw Prince. That's where a lot of people got introduced, even though he had a few albums out before, and that record was so great. But I love it. I gotta ask you guys, you gotten to play with and meet a lot of your heroes, play with rock legends. Tell me what that experience was like, and I can start with you on this one, Rich, with Jimmy Page and that tour. And what were some of the great memorable moments of that?
I remember when we had toured with Robert Plant, and Robert became friends. We all became friends. And they were playing in London at the Royal Albert Hall. And Robert and Jimmy were getting back together. And he's like, I'm going to bring Jimmy down. And we were all excited, But Jimmy came, and he was one of us. Chris had a ton of records in the dressing room, and Jimmy was looking through the records, and he was just like, oh, I love this, I love that, And then
Do you remember what those records were?
I don't.
I mean, he would, one record would be this record called Bigger Than Colossus, and it's like the original Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac plays with this guy, Otis Spann, who's a famous blues pianist. And that would be a record that Jimmy was like, wow, you're into this. And but the other thing, I mean, Jimmy's just the most lovely person, and that was an incredible experience, and we are still friends with Jimmy. But because of the way we sounded, because of we made records, whether it was when we've hung out with Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood or whatever, or even I remember being at the Sunset Marquee in 1990, and I was like, wow, there's Joe Cocker is standing right there. And he looked over and he said, hey, you're Chris. And I was like, yeah, I am. And he said, get over here. And he was like, oh, my lad. He gave me a big hug. And Ronnie Lane, and the first person that one of my favorite artists is the great Ian Hunter from Off the Hoople and his solo records. And the first time we played New York, there's like a bang on the door, and it's Ian Hunter, and we're like, wow, he's standing there. And he was like, I just wanted to come meet you guys. I really like what you're doing. And I think it was cool because of what we were doing resonated with a generation of rock and rollers and we name checked those guys in those records. We were never afraid to say, yeah, this is, I mean, I think we were weird because we liked some of the records in mom and dad's records, whether it was Jimmy Reed and Mose Allison and Sly and the Family Stone, whatever, like they had a lot of records, and that we never thought, oh, it's not cool or whatever. Like these records were cool.
Yeah, especially when you Mose Allison, like the Who were covering him, and there was all these
everyone. I mean, it was a lot more open at that time,
So I want to pivot here, and I want to talk about your new album, Happiness Bastards.
Yes.
I love the title, and we've been playing Waiting and Wanting on KLOS.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a bunch.
I mean, you could play it a little more, honestly, but that's fine.
I mean, you guys, honestly, it may be one of your best. You guys can't write a bad song, but where did you?
Some are better than others.
But where did you pull from for that song when you were writing it, putting it together?
I mean, for me, what Rich and I do that becomes the Black Crowes when you see us and you hear us has been the same. But Rich, when he plays me something, Rich plays me a riff and it dictates the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the emotion, the image, the scene.
The new record's incredible. I mean, I was talking about like the riffs and the tones of Rich's playing and the leads. There's just so much really interesting stuff. The record it literally does take you on a journey. And I want to ask you about the title of the record too, because it's from a beat poet. And you kind of think it kind of describes your relationship?
Yes, of course. I mean, I just thought it was very, of course, if you follow the band, you know that I mean, you know, we've had our moments together. We're brothers, and it's a, you know, it's a weird thing to traverse sometimes, but yeah, I think it also kind of just speaks to, you know, and I get it, cynicism, you know, you look around in showbiz and rock and roll and you see a lot of people doing things and you wonder what their motivation is. And, you know, out of all the things that we've done, and people, it's lessened since we've been doing it for a few years now, back to it. But we were never that clever just to do it. If we had been really clever, no one would ever have known that we were fighting, or, you know what I mean? Unless you were like, you know, backstage or whatever. But we've always just worn our hearts on our sleeves, for better or for worse. And we're in a great place. And we're having so much fun in the Black Crowes. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful.
We love that.
I love that you guys are back out on the road. It's so very cool. What's it looking like this year as far as touring?
I think we just want to change the name of the band to Happiness Bastards.
I mean,
and really throw a wrench in the works. You know, what are they? We're touring. We're going back. We're going to take, and very excited as well to have these new songs. It's been a long time since we've had a bunch of new songs to put into the repertoire, and get out there and just, you know, and do it.
These are absolute rockers. People are going to love them because they're certainly, they bring that feel of that groove that you guys have live, and the bluesy rock and roll.
Well, that was the tour. The tour really focused on, at first, you know, when we said we'd do this, and then the idea was, let's do Shake Your Moneymaker. And Rich and I were like, really? Like, because when we made Shake Your Moneymaker, we never played that record from A to B, or what, you know, track to track. We never did. The first show we played, we probably played new songs, and we were always messing about. But doing that really was wonderful. You know, it was really like, wow, this is kind of, in a weird way. We've done so many different kind of records and done so many different presentations. And when we got to do this, I think we just felt, this is what we are. This is really what it's about. And we don't have to, we've done our, you know, we've done all these things. Now let's just rock. You know what I mean? Like, let's.
What do you think of that?
amen. Amen.
I love that. I mean, I think that's phenomenal.
Because it feels good, and it's, you know, and it's true. We're one of the maybe last bands that we don't use in-ear monitors. We don't have digital. It's totally cool. People have to do what they have to do to feel good about their presentation. Absolutely. But we're just kind of old school that way, and we like it funky and loud, and, you know, if it's not about to be a crash, then it's not really fun. You know what I mean? Like,
we like it too. We like it too, Chris. Absolutely.
Incredible.
Let's take this we've got a few questions out here. So Emo's down here. I know we've got some great questions on standby, yeah?
Yeah,
Go
we
ahead,
do.
Emo.
All right, we got Lisa for Ventura. What would you like to ask, Lisa?
First of all, thank you both for all the magnificent, unique tunes all these years.
Thank you very much.
I would really like to know the inspiration behind soul singing, my absolute favorite.
Wow, okay. I didn't see the soul singing question coming our way. Again, I mean, not to repeat myself, Rich played that riff, you know? And that riff to me is really, there's a joy to that, you know what I mean? And at that time in my life, I felt I was coming out of a fairly sort of little dark end of the 90s sort of place, you know? And then, so that song would, you know, when he plays me something, that starts to dictate where the emotion comes from. And I was like, I felt like I had put that sort of part, or that loneliness or darkness or whatever, for, you know, a more generic thing. I could put it aside, and then love at the time could be, you know, and I like the idea of people consider me a soul singer. And we like soul music. I mean, all good music is soul music. Thanks. So that, you know what I mean? So that's a great example of Rich has that beautiful guitar intro. And then that would just set my imagination going to what because the first line of songs, I had been down, but I'm not down anymore, you know?
Beautiful,
Thank
beautiful.
you so much for that question. Thank you. What's your next one, Emo?
Yeah. I think we got time for one more.
All right, Max from Azusa, what do you got?
If
for
you
Chris and
ask
Rich?
about soul singing, it's gonna be.
I'd like to know about soul. No, just kidding. I'd like to know your inspiration behind the cover of Amorica.
Okay.
Hustler fans, are you?
Yeah, totally. You know what's so funny? Of course, we just thought, oh, everyone is, or because I, for the most part, do the art direction for everything that we've ever done, pretty much. And at the time, in the 90s, even though we weren't, our sound and we weren't a part of what was going on in like Seattle and more modern rock, even though we were all the same age and like making records, I just felt it's not yes, it's a highly graphic kind of sexualized image, but to me it was a statement about the gratuitous nature of those things. Like, there's no intimacy, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like anti that. So, but no, people just can't get past the pubic hair.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, it was like, there's always a double meaning. So it wasn't just about, obviously, we've never been, I don't think, that kind of group where we were really selling that. But, the the way we were living at that time, not you so much. Rich went to bed early every night. It was very cute. And he'd wake up and be like, what is this about? So that would be it, you know what I mean? And Amorica is just a made-up sort of idea about art and counterculture and rock and roll and music and drugs and all of it in like one little thing.
All right, thanks so much, you guys. We really appreciate you sitting down.
It's
and
time to
talking
Thank
for
you.
a few
let's
minutes.
go over
Yeah.
and get ready to perform. Thank you so much. What do you guys think? Chris and Rich Robinson.
The Black Crowes, you guys. Now, we're going to take a quick break, and these guys are going to work their way over to the stage here shortly, and they're going to rock the house. You guys ready?
That's right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, guys. It was awesome to do that with you guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for being so amazing. So great.